I'm sure most of you will have seen on the news that Unison, alongside Uniting GMB and local government, and Unison with all our members in health, are going to go into a ballot for industrial action on pensions, where we'll be joining other public sector trade unions in education, in the civil service, and we propose to have over 3 million workers all on strike together, united, on the 30th of November to protect our pensions. And your birthday, very good. And I want to start by saying that the reason for that is that the government has not moved 1 inch over months of talks about pensions, about their proposals. And their proposals are for a staggering combination of a tax on our pension scheme that work out at asking us to pay 50% more and get about 40% less benefits. And anyone, if you went into an insurance scheme many years ago and you started paying into it and paying a pension and getting it, and then suddenly said, do you know what, halfway through we're going to tell you pay twice as much and get half as much, you wouldn't think very much of it. And the people who most call for it, who say they're unaffordable, people like Digby Jones, have you ever heard of him? Director of the CBI, they keep telling us public sector pensions are unaffordable. Well, firstly I want to tell you is about their pensions. How much are the pensions of directors of the FTSE top 100 companies? I'll tell you, the average pension pot for the average director in the FTSE 100 is, it works out a pension of £224,121 a year. Now, not bad if you can get it. That's 34 times bigger than the average public sector pension. It's even more compared to the average pension in local government. But our pension schemes are not in crisis. They are not in some kind of financial mire. The local government pension scheme has £165 billion of assets. But before you even talk about the assets, we take in contributions twice as much as we pay out. In other words, there is no economic or financial reason to attack our pension scheme. It's based on the pension scheme itself. It's based simply on this. The government want to make us pay more to pay for a deficit created by the bankers. And the first of their attacks is absolutely directed to that. The Treasury wants to take 2.1 billion out of our pensions and put it into the Treasury to make up for the deficit. Nothing to do with our pension schemes, nothing to do with making them viable, simply for that. I want to go through some of the attacks. I think it's people understand. There's a little postcard here, we try to make it very simple, but it's people probably understand the 5 main attacks I want to make. On contributions, they want to increase it by an average by, they say 3.2%, that's over half as much again as what you currently pay. So if, like a lot of people in local government, you're currently paying 6.5%, you're looking at nearly 10% in pension contributions. If you're earning around 20 grand, you're looking at paying maybe £50 a month more. If you're on 30 grand, you're looking at paying £75 or more, and so on. And that's at a time when for 2 years we've had our pay frozen, so it's a real cut in your pay. And what it will do, many people will question whether they can afford to pay it, either continue paying it or whether they'll join the scheme. So it puts at risk the whole of our pension schemes, because pensions basically work by the people who are currently working pay in, and the ones who are retired pay out. It's like a pyramid. If people withdraw, the pyramid turns upside down, and the pension scheme itself is under scheme. So that is a huge level of attack. The second thing is raising retirement age. Now, I don't know how much people have followed this, but the proposals are to raise the state retirement age to 66 from 2020. So if you're under 55 now, you're going to work a year longer to get your state pension. They're saying they want to link the age that we can get our pensions to that as well. If you're under 44, they're going to say you work to 67. If you're under 35, that you work to 68. And people may have seen the weekend before last, Steve Webb, the Lib Dem pensions minister, has said they want to look at changing that more quickly, at bringing in the raising of the age longer. So all of you sitting in this room, the prospect of working for longer. But that's even worse, because they also want to end our final salary schemes. And final salary schemes offer people real certainty. Because what you know is you pay in throughout your working life, and you know that your pension will be related to your final salary. It allows you to plan, it allows you to understand what your pension is. They want to change that to career average. And there's been some trying to sell that by saying it will be fairer, because surely the chief executive does better than the lowly person in a school. Now, if they were talking about redistributing from the higher paid to the lower paid, I'd be willing to look at it. But the truth is, all of us, at some time in our career, our pay goes up. And in an industry like ours, we're on incremental rates. There is no one in this room who will be on the same rate of pay when they retire as in their first year. But if you take career average, you only get paid based on what you were paid in that year. So what experts say is in order to get the same amount, you'd have to build up your pension quicker, what they call the accrual rate. At the moment, for every year you pay into the pension scheme, you get 1/60th of your final salary. The government proposals for a career average are that you might use a building up rate, an accrual rate of 1/70th, 1/80th, 1/90th or 100th. In layman's terms, what does that mean? I'll tell you what it means. You might have to work 10 years longer, pay in 10 years or more longer in order to get the same benefits. So again, they're talking about their span, their idea of a reasonable span of contributions is 50 years of paying into a pension scheme before you can get the type of benefits you would currently get after 30 or 40. Again, it's an absolutely massive change. Changing the way that you calculate how our pensions increase year on year when we retire. Until last year, that was based on the retail price index. They've changed it to the consumer price index. That works out on its own about a 15% cut in what you get in your pension, for very simple reasons. It's quite complicated why it's worse. It doesn't include some things. It also has this bizarre thing where it assumes that if things go up in price, you'll swap it for something else. It's a bit like, I don't know if when you went to school you studied the French Revolution, but Marie Antoinette, his famous phrase, if your bread rise, let them eat cake. That's what the CPI does. It says if something goes up in price, magically you'll get something else. Except that inflation for pensioners and for the poorer you are, the greater, is disproportionately affected by fuel prices, by bread prices, by food prices, all of which are going up much faster. That itself is a huge change. The last one is the fair deal on pensions. Again, it's a huge issue. At the moment, if you're unfortunate enough to be transferred out of a public service to a private company, that private company has to provide a broadly comparable pension. And in many cases, they have to apply to join our pension scheme. It puts people off, to be honest with you, because they don't like providing decent pensions for people. What the government wants to do is to get rid of that altogether. What that means is to make it far easier for people to privatise. It means people who privatise won't have decent pensions, and it opens the door to them. Now, all of those together, I said, you can work it all together. It works out as something like 50% increase in what you pay, 40% decrease in what comes out. And that's why we are all balloting for action. I think one of the things to stress is it is joint. So today we had already scheduled a branch meeting, but yesterday we met with Uniting the GMB, and every meeting we want to hold jointly with all the unions, because it's important people understand that we are taking action together. Not one union, not two unions, somewhere between 14 and 29 unions all together. That's the kind of united front we want to make. The other point I really want to stress is, of course, it's about pensions, but really, at the root of it is what this government wants to do in terms of austerity, and that's make working class people pay for a crisis that we didn't cause. So it's not just that they're attacking our pensions, they're also attacking our pay. It's not just our pensions, it's also our jobs, it's also our services, it's every aspect of our lives. And I think there will be a tester of how we bear up on pensions. If we aren't able to build an effective fight on pensions, this government will be encouraged to attack us on everything else. So I really want to do two things with me today. The first is to throw it open for questions about whether it's about the pensions proposals from the government, the strategy we've got, the action we're going to take, and I'd invite people to spend a bit of time doing that. But the second part, I think we need to collectively plan about how we are going to make sure we get a massive turnout and a massive yes vote. We've already produced this postcards for materials, we've got check-off lists for people voting, we've got lots of information about what's going on in the pension scheme, but every single member has a role to play. For some of you, we want you to go out and organise the meetings. We're going to try and get meetings in hubs, if you like, in different areas of the borough, but we want people to organise workplace meetings. The argument's got to go right down to the bottom of the membership. Every single member can talk to your workmates. You can talk to the person next to you. First question you want to ask them, how are they in the union? Because they haven't been in the union before, now's the time to be it. You need to take to them, this is what's happening to the pensions. Do you know about it? We're balloting, but why don't you join us? Other people, we want people to come and join us in touring buildings and creating the atmosphere that we're going to really turn over on pensions. So, as I say, two things. One, let's hear your questions, but secondly, let's really get down to brass tacks about how we're going to campaign to make sure we deliver a vote that will protect our pensions.